All right. Hello, everybody. I have my light in front of my face like a dum dum. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. It's Friday, which is not a normal day we would join you to talk about Warhammer, but yet here we are, all the same. What's up, Tom?
I'm ready to do this. Let's do it.
Yeah, great, great. You can put that away and throw that in the trash because,
We
as we're going to
we
talk
don't
about, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
we don't have to roll for priority. What?
Oh God. Oh boy.
It's gonna be so amazing.
All right. So, yeah, we're here to talk about the announcement today. I will tell you that this is a surprise. So let's just start with the emotional response. Okay. What did it got announced? If you're watching this, you know that they announced Warhammer: The Old World. I have the best piece of art up from the article on the screen so people can see it. And it is the best moment that ever happened in the old world. It's the moment where it was destroyed. Best thing that ever happened to the old world was sending it up in flames. Well done, Archeon. You're a hero. You're the hero we needed and deserved.
I disagree. He now needs to take World Destroyer off of his resume
I saw the meme.
because
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, sorry everybody, my painting light was in my face. That's funny. So at any rate, let's just talk emotional responses first. So they announced this morning. Okay.
Yep.
What are you thinking? What's on your mind?
So they announced it, and I went, okay. like that's what they got out of me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, I mean, I think I get it, but okay. Yeah, that's my response. Like that was the whole range of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I watched everybody's reaction videos today. Everybody
Yep.
who's posted one, I think.
Like Rob and what's his face?
And Two Plus had some discussion about
Yep.
it. Heywo, I think, had the best reaction that mirrors your own. Clearly, by the way, Heywo, I hate that you stole my concept. We were on Simpatico, because he just made a video. It's really great. In fact, I won't give it away. I'll just say go watch Heywo's video. My initial thought was I'm much the same. Like an all right, okay,
Like I'm listening.
sure, yeah. So what is this? Let's get into the specifics of the announcement, right?
Yep.
So what
Yep.
they said is there is a new team. They opened within, within the studio somewhere. Now
Yep.
the running theory is it'll be within the Forge World team that has been brought under the main studio because they said there was an announcement coming about Forge World,
Well,
and this could be
in
a
that small video.
and the
Hold on.
Forge
So
World guy was there, who was the
right,
one
the
doing
in
it.
the video, the one who was like, "Why don't we do Horus Heresy for fantasy?" and it be yeah, like that was Forge World guy. So it's probably Forge World. Like that's who's probably going to own it.
One would assume, in the same way they basically own the Horus Heresy, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it would just make sense for them to own this as well and to make it basically a specialist game under their banner.
Yep.
We don't know that for sure, but that's a fairly easy assumption, right?
Right. Right.
And they've said that it is not coming soon, and they were incredibly emphatic on this. That it
Right,
is
which is like what they said with the sisters, and they didn't. Like they were
well,
very
and
like tried and true on that.
well, let's look at that. Let's look at the parallel to the sisters real quick because they said the sisters were coming in 2019, and like under the wire, they're just making it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
Like that was announced at AdeptCon 2018, and they said
Yep.
it'll be sometime in 2019, and they just made it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. You will be able to buy some of the army in 2019, is what they said. And guess what?
They
You are going
got
to
it.
buy some. Yep.
They got it.
There's a box.
So they said not this year, not the next year, at least. Which realistically means, let's put this in real terms for everybody for a moment, okay?
Yep.
Realistically, what that means is that this is available at the earliest the end of 2022.
This is available at the next edition change.
Well, I'm just saying I'm giving you an earliest possible date,
Right. And
whereas the
what I'm
more
saying,
realistic date is something like 2023.
Right, but I'm likening it to the actual AOS cycle, which is right now about 4 years.
Sure.
Like the prior AOS and fantasy cycles have been 4 years, which means that this like it would hypothetically launch with third edition AOS.
Sure. Fair point. Or sometime around there.
Right.
The way I thought about it, the way I phrased it to you earlier today was we are as potentially as far away from this game, whatever it is,
Yes.
as we are from the first GHB in the past. Like
Right.
that this
Right.
game is as far in the future as
Yep.
the first GHB was in the past. Okay.
Yep.
So what even AOS looks like, or the world of this game looks like, or the world period looks like at that point, hey, I don't know.
If there is a world at that point.
Sure, who even knows? I could be dead. That was my joke earlier. It seems entirely possible. So, like that's number one. We've got to like, of course, today the hype train is like on a million. Sure, but of course we got to set that back a lot. So yeah, I mean, obviously tempered expectations. Now, there's a lot I want to unpack with this announcement, Tom. There's so much that I want to talk about here.
All of the everything. Absolutely.
Just because I spent the day like reading Facebook, unfortunately.
That mistake.
I wanted to
just
take
stuck
the
to Twitter.
temperature. I wanted to take the temperature. It's good to go out there and do the research. Look, as an investigative journalist, you don't want to go to like war-torn countries, but sometimes that's where the wars are. They don't happen over here in your backyard. You got to go do the.
Did you see any of the conversation I was having on a local page of ours?
Yeah, I did.
On Buckeye Battles?
Sure. Yeah. Which is like the big 9-page community site around here.
Yeah.
Sure. And interesting mixed reaction there. So that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are I think the reactions were a range of things, people being obviously a lot of people very excited, a lot of people who are sort of concerned, a lot of people who don't know what to think. Right. Which all makes sense. Because they didn't give basically anything in this article except to say, we've got a logo, talk to you. Well, you'll see more, but it's going to be 4 years. We've got nothing else.
Right.
So let me start out with a personal message to GW. Hopefully they can get this far into the video. Okay.
Okay.
I want to start here. These seem to work. Oh, just as a real quick aside,
are you gonna make the Giants comment?
I am. They ended it with saying there's something giant coming, but we're heish about it. I ended this week's Warhammer Weekly saying, just give me a giant army. Let's say it's from Heish. If I nailed that call, okay, if that's what we get.
That thing didn't even age 48 hours.
If in 48 hours that random prediction comes true, then we are the greatest of all time. Like, I am just saying right there. But at any rate, that's just a slight aside.
Or we have much more influence than we anticipate.
Yeah, boy, really fast turnaround on that one.
Just we're speaking things into existence.
First, we got the cities to happen. Second, we got this. It's great. You're welcome. Welcome, world. No, so okay. Message to GW. Here would be the first article I would publish about this. Okay.
Yep.
The first article I would publish about this, if I was GW, would be my guiding principles.
Sure.
The 3 or 4 guiding principles, design principles that I operate under in the execution of the creation of this game system over the next 3 to 4 years.
Like what we did with Legacy Heroes.
And every game I've ever designed, basically after the first one, when I realized it's an important thing to do, right? And what the guiding principles would be is to because right now what they've given us is a big box, just a big blank box. Like you could have,
and we can put anything in that box.
You can have that boat, or you can have what's in the box. But the box could contain anything. It could be a boat. And yes, exactly. And everybody's like pouring their hopes and dreams and fears and
it's so adorable
into the box. Sure, of
yeah.
course. And so hence set the guiding principles. Here would be an example. I'm not saying these are the real ones. Here would be an example of some guiding principles, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Number 1.
Yeah, like paint a picture for everybody.
Sure.
I know what
Here's what I mean by guiding principles, everybody. This would be my article number 1. I'd publish in 4 months about this or whatever.
Yep.
guiding principle the first. Imagine I was in charge of this. We will pay homage to the lore of the old world and respect it, but we will not be completely constrained by it, and will seek to explore corners of the old world that we were not previously explored. Okay? Guiding principle the first. Guiding principle the second. We are not seeking to recreate the worlds of Warhammer, of previous editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and instead we'll be looking to make a new game that utilizes the best of what Warhammer Fantasy Battles and rank and flank systems had to offer in this game. Okay, great. 3, say something about models. Whatever that means. Like, whatever you think about models. Say something about the models you're going to get to use. Stream thing again. We should be back now. Hopefully. There it is. And we're back. And that knocks off the sound. I hate when that happens. I've got to figure out why that's happening. So, at any rate.
Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, indeed. We're back now. Sorry, everybody. That'll make the audio on this off again, which I just hate. So, I'm going to find it. At any rate, set out those guiding principles, because I think that's an absolutely critical.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody heard me, but like 4 years of expectation just simply leads to disappointment.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like that's going to be the product. And so like what you need to do is set guardrails on expectation.
Yeah, 100%. Because otherwise you're just going to like disappoint people in minor ways now, and don't let them bring their expectations build up that far.
Right.
All right.
You don't want their expectations totally dashed at launch. That's not where you want them.
No, that's where you went wrong with AOS. Right? So don't make that same mistake again. Set it up now, let everybody adjust. People are still interested, we'll dial in, you can continue to build momentum. Right? You don't want a crescendo that crashes.
Right.
So there you go. Okay. So that's sort of my first thought. Okay, Tom. So there's so many things to unpack here. I literally don't even know where to start. And like the comments are rolling in hot and fast. Hopefully everybody can still hear us fine. I am trying to watch. Okay. Number one. Let's tackle this.
Let's talk about models.
Well, hold on. I don't want to get into models. Is this just going to be Warhammer Fantasy Battles again?
No.
No way. No way, no how. If it was, there wouldn't be a 3-4 year development cycle time. So if you're expecting this to just be like 8th edition again, or a reprint or something like that, dash that expectation now. Get rid of it. Okay? It's not that.
Okay, so here's another reality. Here's a reality check for you folks. We don't even know if it's like 28 millimeter heroic scale.
Sure. Completely true. Yeah, like it could be anything.
This could be 6 millimeter War Master reimagined.
Sure. Yep.
I mean, like, I don't want that, but it could be. And so, like, and by the way, square bases make a lot more sense when you're putting like these huge units,
like War Master units,
on the table, right?
Yeah.
Like using like an old chariot base, the 100 by 50s or whatever, like make a lot more sense if they're these big blocks.
Yeah, sure.
But that said, I hope not. I hope that it's the current scale, but continue.
Sure, couldn't be. Is every... Here's a fun question. Are you going to be able to just pick up and play every army that you currently have from Warhammer Fantasy that's still on square bases?
No. Why would you?
It's a great question. Like, I saw, I think, and I don't want to call you out, but I think somebody had mentioned in the comments, like, there won't be any new models when this releases. You're out of your mind.
No.
You're flat out of your mind.
They are a model company. The whole purpose of this is to sell models, folks.
Absolutely.
This is a model selling company.
Yes. They're not going to go through 3 years of work to sell a book. There's no money in that, folks. Okay? That's not the end of this road.
Well, and actually, like, they have much greater appeal selling models. I shared this in a conversation on Twitter where somebody was, bitching, and I just simply said, they are a model company. They're going to sell models. You can bet your so one of my predictions, and we'll get to this, is that, like, especially if this is through Forge World, we will see at least 2 new armies, and my money is on 2 armies specifically. Tomb Kings, and Bretonnians. And guess what? Even if people are not adopters of this game, they will sell models to Ninth Age folks, and they will sell models to Kings of War.
Yeah, sure. Like
they're selling models. If whatever the effect is on those other games or bringing players back, they're going to sell models, and that's the point.
Yeah, the point of this is certainly to have new model lines to sell, right?
Right.
Like they are a model making company, and models are what we love from them. That meme, I don't remember who made the meme yesterday, but God bless you for making the meme of like Vince outside of Warhammer World that says, "I love this. Please do more of this thing," or please continue. Which was so ironic to have that the day before this happens, but like whatever, it's fine. But yes, like 100%, there's going to be armies, and like. The idea that there's some missing models from Horus Heresy or whatever, yeah, okay, great. That means, sure, I'm not saying they'll have every model at launch, but you're crazy. No. You're crazy if you think they're just going to be like, okay, just go use all your old models, people who bought that 15 years ago. No need to change.
Right, like, if they're selling a game, they have to sell models.
Right.
Newsflash, folks. High Elves have been discontinued.
Like, they're going to offer current ranges for these things that have been discontinued. And that will mean updating many of these ranges and new armies and stuff like that. Some will be reimagined. Some, and by the way, I'm not saying at the same time either that they trash everything you had, because I don't think that's true either. Okay.
No, I think that you'll be able to put dwarves on the table. You'll be able to put, like humans, like free cities, like, you know what I'm saying, Empire. But they've discontinued a lot of stuff.
Right.
And so, like, they are going to have to produce models for this thing.
You're right. And, like, absolutely. So, I mean, it's just like, will you be able to use your whole everything? I have no idea. Will you be able to use some of the old things? Any of the old things? My guess would be, yes, probably some. Even if only as proxies, but in some way. Just because it would create too much acrimony if they just literally said, okay, we were just kidding, now throw everything in the bin. But I think the focus will certainly be on new stuff.
They want to sell models. Let's go back to principle number 1. They want to sell models. And what better way to sell models for this new game than to double dip with the old game? And by the old game, I mean AOS.
Sure.
Like the new game being the old world. And what they will do is they will have models in the AOS range that people can dip into.
Yeah. So, and I want to, so just moving on from the comments here, we're going to keep going.
Yep.
Okay. And this is all going to be like, this is all theory and speculation based on, best guesses, of course. Tom or I know nothing about this, right?
GW seems to know nothing about this.
Right, sure. So the question then becomes, and I saw somebody said this, well, it's not just about selling models. I didn't say that. I said they're a model company and they like selling models, so they're going to make sure they can, right?
Right.
But there's a second reason to do this. So let's talk about the why, Tom. This is a fascinating question to me. Let's dig into this. This has been the most common question I've seen, right?
Right.
Why now? Why at this moment? Why announce this now? Why say this 3 to 4 years at minimum before this happens? Why announce something now that's going to come out in 2023, let's say? Why?
Because that is because in a brainstorming session of what next steps for the growth of AOS are, this is the next step. Not unlike Horus Heresy and 40K.
Sure.
Like if they're blowing, if they're continuing, like, so if I'm a product developer, I'm going to look at our line and say, how do I continue to grow our brand?
Right. Sure. Yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the things that we have that have succeeded, and I'm going to go, okay, well, I have this AOS, like I have AOS. How do we make it more like 40K, or how do we make it like what's been successful out of 40K? And I'm going to go, well, they have Horus Heresy. What do we have for Warhammer or Warhammer Age of Sigmar? And somebody will go, well, they have Old World. So that's one piece of it. It's just a very pragmatic piece. I think another piece of it is just simply this is one of, like, how do I want to say this? They need something for Forge World to do that appeals to fantasy.
Sure. Also true.
And so so the question is do they turn Forge World into like a niche army builder for AOS? And the question is I don't know that that's going to be what they want to do for a variety of reasons. And so, they need to give them their own thing. And this is a product that arguably wouldn't compete directly with AOS. And I think that's the key. Like, if they gave them Mordheim, that feels like that's going to compete with Warcry.
Sure. Yeah, there's no
so,
Mordheim. I mean, maybe 8-9 years down the line after this, then they do a
right.
Mordheim version for that. Sure, but that's not what this is. Okay. Let me. Do you mind if I just chart out some stuff here, Tom?
Yes, that's fine. Are you going to talk about Total War now?
No, I'm going to talk about why now.
Okay.
Well, yes, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah.
So let me chart out a whole world of possibilities. I put a lot of thought into this one because the why is the big question. So I literally wrote down a bunch. I spent the day writing down my thoughts about this because everybody's got their opinion. Everybody's like, it's definitely to do this. I know because I'm sure I'm a smart person. Okay.
Sure.
We're all smart. Here are some potentialities. One, it's a defensive move. So I see this one pretty common. Like Kings of War, 3rd edition, new 9th Age, Marvel Crisis launching, right? Lots of other hype on things that are coming out, especially things that would directly compete with it, like KOW or T9A, right? So that's a defensive move in the market. Okay. So sure, maybe. So here's another one. Exactly what you said. I completely agree. Like, this is just the next natural extension for our product, right? All right, there we go. We're back. Okay, so the next thing they could do. So this could just be the come see the softer side of Sears, right?
Yeah.
Tapping into an untamed market or an untapped market.
Untapped market. Yep.
Which is your old school Warhammer Fantasy players, people who refuse to come over, people who want a rank and flank game. All those people who have those litmus test issues that AOS will never cross. It's a Rubicon they'll never cross, right? This gives them a thing to sell to them.
Right.
Okay.
It also shores up a critique of them as a company.
Sure. Here's another option. Just another interesting hype train to keep community engagement and involvement high. Somebody mentioned this in the chat, and this is an interesting take as well. Like the idea that since the Sisters thing has come to an end, and it was pretty positive in generating a regular buzz and interest, this will be a new thing that does that, right? It's a regular point of conversation, right? Okay, so those would be more offensive moves, right?
Right.
Here's another possibility. They're continuing their transition in radical transparency.
Right.
They've said that they want to open up more transparency. They're giving us more insight into things as they're being delivered. They're not going to talk about like armies the same way, more than a couple months out, or give you that. But when it's a major project like this, maybe this is just what they'll do now. Maybe a year in advance of the next version of AOS, they actually start talking about that a year in advance, right? And invite a lot more public participation. I'm just like, it's a possibility.
Yeah. Yep.
The next one is, the Total War thing, right? Total War, Vermintide, whatever, all these games where it's just another way to have people draw interest in, right? To give those people a connection point, right?
Yep.
So like all of these are possible. And from my experience in working in a company and looking at making a major move like this, like there were many spreadsheets and business cases and PowerPoint presentations. And what happened is a bunch of different upsides went up, right? Like somebody made a PowerPoint presentation that said, here's our upsides. 1, gives us a way to push against Kings of War and 9th Age. 2, helps us expand into untapped markets. 3, gives us a reach into client bases that we haven't reached for several years because they're unwilling to cross the Rubicon of AOS for various reasons. They don't like the AOS style of fantasy, or they want to rank and flank, etc. 2, increases our visible transparency and public facing communication and involves and builds the community, which by the way, I don't think they're against at all. Like that's not being being self-serving. That's a good thing, right? That they should seek after that.
By the way, this also
they could like the PowerPoint presentation that the leader gave, whoever thought this up could have just said everything. Could have just said all this.
Right. There's another factor that I think that probably was a real factor.
Sure.
That is the perpetual Gordian knot that is Warhammer Legends.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And that this actually gives them a very clear handoff because they don't have to worry about Legends anymore.
Right.
Like if this thing exists, Legends doesn't need to.
Sure. They can just shuffle eventually anything they don't want over into that game, right? And say it's now over here. And it now has a home for all that. And yes, I agree. Permanent home for all the Legend stuff, right? And my guess is they threw up that PowerPoint that said upsides, and then you switch the... Oh, for God's sakes. Is this really going to keep happening this regularly? Oh, there we go. And we're back instantly. Okay. I'm going to figure this out. If I could fix it right now, I would, but I'll fix it.
I know you would.
At any rate, okay. So, 2 risks. 1, competing with ourselves. Well, that's what people have said. Why would you compete with yourself? Right? People have said this. I've seen this. Silly. I saw this in many comments. Oh, I agree. Okay. Why would you compete with yourself?
Right.
There's a very simple answer. You're not competing with yourself. You are being both products on the market. There are several famous cases where when you had a market leader, the way that they fended off competition was by creating their own competition. They created a competitive product to themselves and then took both the number 1 and 2 slot in the market.
Right.
Okay.
Not unlike Fantasy and 40K for the longest time.
Sure.
For a long time, like that, those were the top war game selling, juggernauts.
Sure. And like you can look at the upsides I talked about before, right? Of like it can help pull it. The hope would be, first of all, they don't care if they somewhat split the community. What does it matter to them?
Right. As long as you're buying their models, they don't care which line of models you're buying.
Yes, I've heard this same argument in my own professional career when I've been in, because I'm in product development for a long time, and people often say, "Well, are we competing with ourselves?" And I'll be like, "I don't care as long as people are buying stuff from us. Who cares?" Okay, right. And like that is simply a sort of existential quality of this. And obviously, their hope is that they can grow the total audience.
Right.
With basically no downside risk of losing people. If people move over and go buy stuff from their other product line, they care as much as they care when people switch from AOS to 40K or 40K to AOS. It's an irrelevant thing, right?
Right.
This is just expanding their potential market share. It's and if you look at what they've done, I agree. Like part of what I agree with you, if you look at what they've done over the past couple of years, they've been exploring their own vertical and horizontal integration, right?
Right.
Like we all remember our lessons about vertical and horizontal integration. Like when you look at something like 40K, they had the main game, then they gave you Apocalypse, and then they gave you Kill Team, so you have this vertical way to play the game, and then there's horizontal. They've got Horus Heresy and other types of touches like that. They want to do the same thing here in AOS, and it makes sense. Cool, right? And so. I completely agree with Aletheus. I don't know how to say your name, Aletheus. But even if they were to partially split their customer base, I would argue that the grown community and the non-insignificant portion that would do both would, you're definitely gaining more than you lose there, right?
Right. It's just a win.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So that's sort of downside risk number 1. Downside risk number 2 is this idea of like splitting the community. Right? Yeah. Like the idea that, and I've seen this events from a lot of AOS players. Like, well, we have a good community. We don't want to see it messed up or something, whatever that means.
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
So my argument would be, I think the idea would be, if I can frame this in a way that I don't agree with, but let me see if I can play the devil's advocate for a moment.
Right.
Please don't take these as my words, but here we go.
But as a representative position.
As a representative straw man position, yes.
Sure.
Okay. So the concern for the community is, look, when we went to AOS, the reality is there were a bunch of people who were kind of bad actors in the community that quit playing. And the people who stayed and who have joined with a lot of enthusiasm and fervor, and we've built from the ground up a solid enthusiastic community, right?
Sure.
And that now bringing back these bad actors will somehow poison the well.
Right.
Right. Especially when you consider that there is some enmity between the people who are diehard Oldhammer, Warhammer Fantasy Battles, whatever you want to say, players, right?
Yep.
Versus those who were playing AOS.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's sort of the position to be staked out. One, if I'm them, if I'm GW, I'm not sure I really care.
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
I'm concerned with the larger community playing my games in total, not really with how either any one of them sees the other one. Like, so that's number one.
Right.
Number two would be I'm not sure that I'm worried about that at all. And here's what I mean. The people who are truly those like bad actors, they're probably just gone for good. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
they're really like that. And
They're poisoning other games.
yeah, sure, they're over being bad actors in other games now. And just growing the community of people who are playing, like I think there's a lot of people who are just excited to have a thing to play that speaks to them. And for the most part, it's a good group of people who are going to show up and be enthusiastic about their game. Some of them will come in and also play AOS. Some of the AOS people will also go play whatever this is, whatever this game ends up being. And for the most part, yes, there'll be some back and forth internet memeing at each other, right? And my answer to that is, who cares? The internet isn't real in that way, right? Like that's back and forth memeing isn't real. That's just people being 12. Like,
well, and there is a sense in which any publicity truly is good publicity.
Sure.
And so like that moves their game to the spotlight regardless.
Yeah, I mean, my point is that there's plenty of there's no way you can paint with some broad brush like that and say everybody who's interested in this or who liked, Warhammer Fantasy Battles or, was unwilling to come play AOS as a toxic person. That's nonsense. That's just complete nonsense, right?
Yep.
There are always going to be bad actors in any community. It's the community, if it's good, will eventually sort of purge them because it'll remain positive. And I have no doubt that like bringing in whatever this game is will bring in a bunch of good people who are excited about the game they're playing, and that's awesome.
So can I be a jaded negative Nancy and present an alternative possibility by the why now? Or do you want to keep going down this road?
No, I'll just say like let me answer a comment real quick here.
Yeah.
Somebody said it's annoying to see them interject and claim GW is reversing on AOS. Look, dumb people on the internet say dumb things. I don't know what else to tell you. My best advice for you in all aspects of your life is to not let the internet become your reality, right? Sure. Like those kinds of negative posts are infectious and just not good for your mental health in modern society. And by the way, this isn't just Warhammer related. This is just life related, right? There's no reason you have to let that shape your output. Just don't read that stuff. Just don't go there. Curate your feeds. Keep the people you have positive. That doesn't mean they're only agreeing with you. That just means positive. And you'll be fine. And sure, are people going to be annoying? Yes, on both sides of the aisle, and I will ignore all of them. So, there you go.
Yes,
absolutely. Alethea said dumb people say dumb things on the internet or not. Agreed, but when a dumb person says something 3 states over and they just say it out loud, I don't hear them. When they say it on the internet, I could. That was my only point. Yeah, go ahead. Jade away.
So another possibility
take a big drink here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So another possibility for the why now world is because this is what it's going to take for them to prepare for the next stage of AOS evolution.
Okay.
So what happens? What did I say happens in 3 to 4 years?
A new version of AOS. Sure. You're whatever. Let's call it 3.0. Why not?
So then let me ask a question. When we get 4 years down the road, how hyped do you think that GW is going to be about to release another Cities book with 15-year-old models? Or probably some of the kits 20-plus-year-old models.
Sure. You're saying when we get to the next cycle of this, 4 to 5 years from now, and some of these kits have aged even farther, right?
Right.
Do we keep making books with all with all these old minis hanging on? Here's a better example. Maybe you could argue, yes, they're fine with doing it for cities because they already trimmed a bunch.
Sure.
Switch to Skaven, and there you go.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's a great argument for you.
And the reality is that like they have a really deep bench of models now that are AOS specific. In 4 years, because what did we just do? We just completed the entire cycle of current armies in a year and a half. With arguably
more or less. I would actually say it's 2.5 years to be fair. But okay.
So we have a year and a half to 2.5 years, right? Of AOS 2 left. Like on average, like looking at the standard cycles. Like the
could be longer, could be shorter. Let's round up and say 3 years. Sure.
Okay. Well, 2.5 just simply because they release in summer and we're at the halfway point. So 2.5 or 3.5 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So in this world, we're going to have probably realistically, we're going to have a solid 2 years, folks, of new releases.
Yeah. Sure.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Just simply new armies.
Well, and some of it will still be like additional armies that haven't been touched.
Sure,
as much.
like Clan Molder, a Clan Molder book, or whatever that can be, like expansions.
You'll get a
or
new
growths.
Nurgle book or whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. They don't all need to be cut from whole cloth, but yes.
But the point here, though, is that like we may be in a space where like they can just cycle out Seraphon.
Oh, you're saying like they just literally can them out of this game and scoot them to the other one?
Right, and they're just Lizardmen in that other game.
Sure.
Like, and I know I know that people like want to rear up defensively, but like maybe this is their exit strategy for the remains of the AOS line that are hold-ons from Fantasy.
I think.
No, I'm speculating, and like, and again, I'm being somewhat cynical here because what it's basically saying is they want to retire half of your collection, and they also recognize the long, like the social like tension of that, and if Legends needs to be functional if it's going to have a landing spot, and so maybe what they're doing is saying let's create a real landing spot for it.
I just don't think they have. Your view of how they cycle forces is just incorrectly fast. Chaos Warriors are finally getting cycled after 20x years.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, and by the way, replaced with just better versions of the same model. Like I don't think they have that.
I hear that. I also have kits up there that were literally cycled after 5 years.
Sure.
I have 2 kits over there that were cycled in a year and a half.
It can happen, but it's extremely rare. Like, let's check the SKU list. Like, go check the SKU list of SKUs in original publication year still out there. And like the average age of those kits would be way higher than that, man. Way higher.
No, I hear that. And all I'm suggesting is that this could be another bullet point in the list of ways which they can help transition. Not that they're saying they're going to retire your Magath lords or whatever out of Nurgle, but just simply that a lot of this, and even some of the name characters that probably need to be transitioned out, or like the Griffin that has Karl Franz written all over him, it's just very natural landing spots for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, my point is that I don't disagree with you. It gives them a landing pad for when they need it, because nothing then has to be retired and useless. And undoubtedly, as people have said, there will be double dipping. I don't think I think that they will have some amount of double dipping. Like some of the armies that are still around, I think it would only make sense if they're usable in both games, right?
Right.
Sure. Of course.
And so, like, I'm not trying to be negative here, but I'm just simply trying to acknowledge that like there are some other reasons as to why now, because they've promised this 4 year out when we may have an edition change, or around when we would have an edition change. And so, like, if they aggressively cycle some armies, Skaven, for example, or they basically refresh the entire line, they can point to that other thing that you still have an army for.
Yeah, sure. If the need would arise, right? Like, well, we want to can this whole thing and redo it, but don't worry, all your old models just go to this game, and here stays here. Sure.
Right.
Okay, I want to address something real quick. So, Brandon had said, I keep thinking this isn't going to be as huge as people think. It will probably be just a box set, a single index army book, and some movement trays. Brandon, I love you. Let me tell you why you're wrong. It doesn't take 3 years to make that, and you don't hype it up like this. And like what they're trying to create here is a new line, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to create a new line on par. Like they're looking down the track at one thing I do definitely agree with is they're looking down the track and saying, what's our revenue stream look like in 3 years with this stuff? And what can we interject that becomes a new reliable revenue stream, right?
Yep.
That helps us.
How do we diversify our base?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
So like it just, that's not how things would go. Like if that was what they were going to release, you would have seen the announcement that like, oh, we're doing this fun thing and it's going to come next year and whatever. It wouldn't be on a random Sunday. They would have announced it at like Adepticon. It would have been like, this summer we're doing a little special box set release and here you go, have fun. And this is a little bone we're throwing you and whatever, who cares? Right. So yes, somebody said the Chaos Warriors kit is from 03. Thank you. So it's only 16 to 17 years old. I apologize. Yeah, sure.
Which is what I said. Like a lot, like what I proposed was that some kits that are 10 years old are 15 years old or whatever, or 12 or to 15 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, those are the numbers that I gave.
They want to keep reusing these figs as long as they can because the molds are $100,000 to $500,000 a piece. So like,
totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Like, and they also don't tend to break down as much.
Right.
The plastic molds.
Right, and like let me also point out, GW is getting they have increased significantly their warehousing and production capabilities like this last year. Like we know that.
Sure.
Like that's been they invested in the infrastructure of Nottingham, I believe was one of the reports.
Yeah. Hold on, I want to touch a lore thing here, Tom, because you and I talked about this, and I actually want you to go on your little rant from earlier today. Okay, so 2 lore-related things. Let's skip to lore for a second. Because, by the way, again, just to repeat for all the people who joined,
we have no idea.
we have no idea. But they in no part of this announcement said, we're bringing back Warhammer Fantasy Battles. That is not what they said. They said, we're bringing out this new thing called Warhammer The Old World. Very different thing. And the article is all about lore. Okay. Okay. Let me touch this thing real quick here that somebody mentioned lore. Let me find it real quick. Oh, here it is. So Alethea said, I don't think they can retcon the end times without upsetting the AOS lore nerds. And Orange Crow Barman said, what if Archeon lost and the world wasn't destroyed? I wager that's how they play it out. I disagree. I think that just like the Horus Heresy, we all knew how it ended. Emperor's going to end up as a little skull man on his little throne. And like, this only ends one way. But that doesn't matter. Knowing the ending to a story hasn't made, like, the Horus Heresy not be full of, like, best-selling novels, right? Everybody knows at the end. But the story's still compelling. And the reality is we got told the story at a high level by unreliable narrators. So, Tom?
Yes. So, here was one of my pitches. Like, there's a couple different ways you could go this. So, let's say that they set the main sequence in the end times. Okay? As Vince said, like, we know what the ending was, what the result was. Let me say it that way. But part of what has been interesting about the Horus Heresy novel, or like the stories as they've been doing these releases, is that like it seems like we've had an unreliable narrator, or like we don't know all the twists and turns, or the twists and turns we think we know, we don't actually know. Like that's been part of the staple of the releases of the Horus Heresy stuff, from what I hear. I'm not into that stuff. And so my question is what if we get a Horus Heresy style retelling of the end times, but with the suggestion that the current account that we have of the end times, i.e. the end times lore that we have like in the big books that were released,
every single one of which was from an unreliable narrator. Everyone.
Yes. Every single one of them was from an unreliable narrator. And it was almost like, the only remnant that we have of that world are from the winners or survivors. Sigmar, Nagash, Teclis, Alariel. All of them super invested in what they themselves are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if we had what if we had, but what if it's not what happened? Or what actually happened? And maybe from their perspective, what they think happened. But maybe that's, maybe the story that we get told is, maybe let me say it this way. Maybe there's a narrator who is disenfranchised, who knows the truth, who maybe was scapegoated in the end times as a villain, as a bad actor, but in fact, like, he now is recounting the tale, the true tale of maybe the heroes weren't the heroes that we thought they were. Maybe that there was chaos, corruption amongst some of the factions or heroes in a way that led to the end that we hadn't been told.
But Tom,
in my example,
who would this strange hero possibly be? Who could be the person who was so maligned throughout the end times that then suddenly has a chance to retell the story from a different perspective? Who could we look to, Tom?
It's Manfred. Manfred is the answer.
Yeah.
Because, like, hence the, like, hashtag damn it Manfred. You guys remember that from 4 years ago? Like, the reality is that, like, he was the, like, perennial bad actor. He ruined it. He failed. Like, and what if he's like, that's not how that went down? Right? That suddenly becomes super interesting.
Yeah.
If Teclis maybe wasn't as bad of a planner as we thought.
Well, Manfred's also one of the few that you don't really operate from his perspective very much in the End Times books. I did, 50 hours of the End Times? Like, you can go back and look on Forge of Wonders channel. He and I and others did every single chapter of the End Time stories, blow by blow. And the reality is, it was a very small part of the story that was actually told. Right? In the same way that, like, in the Horus Heresy, we know the big beats. This battle, this big battle, this big battle, this big battle. Emperor, stabby, ow, Horus, whatever, right?
Yep.
But, like, a lot of the novels and the exploration is into, other corners, other fronts, other things that were going on, other characters, all these people that introduced that enriched the story. And there's so much of the world. The example I would give is if you've ever played Lord of the Rings online, right?
Yeah.
Like, we all know the story of Lord of the Rings. Like, it's those 9 people, and they go down, and a little short guy throws a ring into a volcano with the help of a different other short guy, right? And that's
so
the story.
Compelling.
Super compelling story. But, like, the Lord of the Rings Online told this other story that weaved you into the plot in a very organic way, where you were seeing, but sometimes you were ahead of the Fellowship, sometimes you were behind them, sometimes you were seeing the remnants of what they do, sometimes you were setting it up so they could be successful, right? Like, all these different things happening in and around the story. And all of that is still very open to do with the End Times lore, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, Manfred was actually there for a lot of key moments.
Sure. The keyest of moments, yes.
The keyest of moments, like, but I'm like Nagash and his resurrection, like the various invasion stuff with the Empire. Like, he was present in a lot of spaces. He would had a very unique interaction and perspective on Vlad.
Sure. What I'll say is, somebody asked the question of, do we know this is even going to be set before the End Times? Yes, at least by all accounts of how they describe it in the article. That seems to be a thing that's pretty solid. So,
I mean, we could be in a world of, like, shattered reality. Like, part of what happened shattered reality itself. And so maybe there's a shard, alternate split timeline, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? But I think it would be super compelling. And by the way, the reason why you don't do Thanquol, who's, like, a very significant member of the Skaven, like, council folks, and the reason why you don't do Alariel or Teclis or any of those is because those are people with power in the new world. What you want is a narrator that is functionally like a henchman.
Sure.
Who was there, right? But isn't invested in the narratives that are being spun.
Yeah.
And I think Manfred and that was maligned for their involvement.
Sure.
Like that, and I think Manfred fits that bill really well.
Yep. And so some people are talking about in the comments. We mentioned the fact that at the top, so for those who joined in or are talking about this, we mentioned at the top that we don't know what scale this is. It could be any scale. Like,
it could be, yeah, it could be
we're
6
all
millimeter.
just assuming that it's full scale, but
I'm gonna
doesn't have to be.
I'm going to put my flag down and say that it's not alternate scale, that it is actually the current scale. And
Agreed.
here's
It would just
why.
give too much crossover. They learned their lesson from
Right.
Old Inquisition and other things
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
Yep. And if people want to use, like, buy kits from this line and use in their AOS conversions, they want to incentivize that.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think there's going to be an alternate scale. I think it's going to be the same. As a closing note, let me just say this: GW.
Oh, we're not closing yet.
No, like, as a
closing
closing
your story.
like,
Okay.
my story of Manfred. GW, if you've made it this far into the video, it's yours.
Sure.
I formally relinquish all rights to that. Pete, you can have it.
To this idea. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Check. You do that automatically, Tom, when you put something on the internet under what's called a Creative Commons license, which is what all these videos go under. So
Details.
they can steal this, and it's not stealing. That's
well,
actually how that works.
But I'm letting them know they can have it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean the fact patterns we have to go off of is they talked about it being, you know, before the world blew up, and they talked about it being as Horus Heresy is to 40K. So it's a reasonable.
Right, and like the big story.
Yeah.
And the big story of the old world is the end times.
Yeah.
Like, that is the Horus Heresy of fantasy or of AOS. Like, it is the thing that led to the current situation. And that's kind of the point of the reason why things are so dark, and, you know, like the Emperor and all that's, you know, like, went off the rails, is because of the Horus Heresy.
Sure.
And so arguably, like, that's what the end times is. It's yeah.
Yep. So, okay, let's I want to tackle another question that came up on some of the other discussions from AOS folks. Why do this in Age of Sigmar and not, why do this in the old world and not in the Age of Myth? Because I saw a lot of people talk about, so the Age of Myth is like early AOS history. It's this very cool period. It's largely unknown and unexplored. It's completely, you know, greenfield territory to write any story you want and have lots of different interesting things going on. Why go back to this previous well when you have this new one to explore? Why not the Age of Myth? Because I saw a lot of people, like, obviously self-selecting AOS people saying, well, we would have loved the Age of Myth. Okay.
Yeah.
So why, Tom? Why do we not do the Age of Myth?
Because it doesn't accomplish a number of those boxes that we ticked off.
Right.
It doesn't provide like cross promotional opportunities with Total War, right? Like, they have an entire customer base there that want to buy into their tabletop game and do this thing. So they need to be able to land them somewhere. The Age of Myth isn't that. They have a lot of, like, lore and IP that they've developed, books, and, like, just content, like volumes and volumes of content. They can just resell that to you rather than developing new.
Yeah.
Like, obviously repackage and stuff like that.
I agree. Like, it just doesn't tap the same market. You're right. Like, from the boxes that I laid out earlier of all the potential upsides, right? It's just not ticking the same number of boxes. Like, if you made that presentation to me and threw both on a slide, and by the way, there's probably a version of this presentation where it was on there, right?
Yeah.
And it was one of the possibilities for expansion.
Can I throw out another really interesting, like, tantalizing idea?
Yeah, sure.
GW's sporadic made-to-order pre-order weeks.
Yeah, sure.
We're testing this concept.
Oh, like testing the sales of these kinds of older things?
Not only that, they were testing so imagine a world.
I was just gauging general interest. Okay.
Okay. So imagine a world where they say, in next month, you'll be able to order a brand new give me an army that's been discontinued. Bretonnian army. There we go.
Sure.
Next month, I think Bretonnian, I think they'll have new models for that, but let's just say hypothetically. They say
because the models for Bretonnia, other than like the questing knights, just aren't actually very good.
Right.
Yeah.
but you know how they did the made to order for like the dwarves, like heroes of the old world and stuff like that. And so they did like I got my Thorgrim Power Throne specifically because they like cycled through that. And what my proposal is like they were testing the ground there of a new way of product production, right? Where they basically like create a limited window where you can made to order these armies. And then they pull it from the market. So like think about Disney, how Disney does, or they previously had done their vaults.
Yeah, sure.
Where like Disney, what they would do is they'd say like, this movie's in the vault, you can't buy it right now.
Yeah. So what's your point here? That's how that would be their marketing strategy for it?
No, but that some of these armies, like it doesn't make sense for them to produce massively volumes of stuff, but a lot of them, they still have the molds for the old kits. Right? So rather than keeping inventory, like what we saw with the ordering strategies of the made to order weekends, where they make something available for 1 or 2 weeks of order, and then they basically say in 8 weeks we'll have this on your doorstep.
Yep.
With like limited order, 8-week lead time, limited commitment on GW's part.
Yes. So how does that relate to the old world?
That they can bring back these collections of like high elves. Like let's say that they do a like
the made
even
to
though
order
that they
was
don't...
metal because they can run short runs of metal. With the plastic things they've discontinued, they're not going to run short runs of those. It's a different thing.
Sure, and that's fine. That's fine. They can still bring back some of these kits and availability in these cycles, in these release cycles that they've demonstrated they can do with the made-to-order stuff.
Sure. You're saying just as a supplement once the thing releases with its new figs and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, okay, maybe. Sure. Okay. That's fine. Let's say sure. Yeah, I mean, made-to-order's a thing. If you have, like, the like, silicone molds that you pour pewter into or whatever, you know, the metal that they're making them out of, it's like they're really cheap and they eventually die, so like it's fine. Okay. Sure. By the way, I saw somebody mention the worry about the split of the community. I wouldn't worry about it. I really wouldn't. I'm not worried about that. We did track this earlier. I'll just re-mention it now because we've had a lot of people join in. Like, the community grows by more people jumping in. More people will come, like, when more people come to play whatever this game ends up being, some will go play with it, some will come back, some will join into this, and it'll be a fun little back and forth, right? And that's fine. And will there be internet sniping? Yes, and who cares? Don't let it poison your experience. If your community's strong, your community will be strong, and it's not a problem. So there you go. Okay. All right. So, all right, what haven't we touched on yet? I'm going through all my notes. Okay, so launching with those models, yeah, there will, like, I don't know it for a fact, but I know it's true, there will be new model ranges because that's what this company is for, and that's why this takes 3 years, right?
Right.
If it was just a book, they wouldn't just do that. They would just, like, books produce faster than that. Models take this long because they have to conceive the game, write the rules, concept all the armies that they want to do, how it flats out, how it fits into those things, decide what the new sculpts are, do the art, do the actual sculpts, put them in, build the molds, put them into production. Like, it's a long road to launch a completely new game. Hence why it's easily 2023 before this thing comes out, right? So, okay. And that's the why. So let's get into just let's get into wild speculation.
Oh, okay. I love wild speculation. This is my wheelhouse.
Right on. So this will be a fun transition into wild speculation. Let's start with a viewer question. What do you think the chances are they add armies that weren't or were discontinued in the original Warhammer Fantasy battles, like Nippon, Kislev, Cathay, Araby, like all the, whatever, Dogs of War, you can pick your poison, right? The other things, the other armies that really weren't the main armies. Tom?
High probability.
Agreed. Totally high probability they explore some of that stuff, because why wouldn't you?
Right.
That would be the whole point. right? They're
Right.
finally
It's
operating at
boring
a
to
scale they
release
can
the
do
same
that.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They're not
And
interested in
especially
just remaking the exact same high elves again,
right.
right? Like
And
there will be for those high elves, but there'll probably be new sculpts, but that's not all they're gonna make.
right. But like if they release high elves, you're gonna see like the force from Kothweek, or Kothik, which is like the like one weird fish one, right? Like in teal with teal colors. Like that's what's happening here.
Sure. And I
Um,
agree. Somebody mentioned like, and you wouldn't see them without rebranding. Well, of course. Yes,
right.
of course you would see them rebranded. Like, but they'd still have the same kind of idea. There's
Right.
nothing innately unique about like they can say it's a Cathayan army. It's the unit names that they want to be unique, right? Like
Right.
there's
Right.
Space Marine itself. That was the whole point. That isn't a unique term, but that's why you have intercessors and interlocutors and every other thing that exists now, aggressors. That's why Stormcast are retributors and like whatever. Like they can come up with clever names for this force, right? Like they wouldn't just call it Cathay, they would call it like the blah 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 of Cathay, and it would have these various things in it. And like
Yeah.
sure,
Like the righteous honorable legion of Cathay or something.
sure, man, why not? Why
I'm
not?
just
Yeah,
layering adjectives.
exactly. Like they'll certainly do that stuff, right? Um, okay, let's talk about the basing. This is everybody's big concern, right?
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
basing thing. I just went to rounds. Am I going to have to go back to squares? No, because
No,
AOS will stay on
you don't have
rounds,
to play this
obviously.
game.
And you don't have to play this game. Yeah, so like what are you talking about? And by the way, if it's going to if it ends up being a rank and flank game.
Yep.
Okay. If,
Yep.
which I would imagine it will be, because that
I
would
think it
make
will
the
be.
most sense to appeal to
I
the
think it
core
will be.
market. When we
Yep.
look at like the reasons that I charted of why you would do a
Yep.
project like this,
Yep. 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 Yep.
then the natural extension is you make a rank and flank game because that meets your competition directly. Now that's not blue water. That's very
Right.
red water. They're just
Right.
hoping they're the biggest shark.
Yeah, they're just entering into a well-trod market.
Right. And so like, there's two ways you do business. Either you go into blue ocean or you go into red ocean and hope you're the biggest predator. Right?
Which let me just say that like arguably AOS was more blue ocean, what they did.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think we did a whole video about calling AOS blue ocean thinking. Yes. Absolutely. But at any rate, there's no world I can see where they make this game and put it in rank and flank and don't have little adapters like they do for Lord of the
Right.
Rings or whatever else.
Right.
Like, in what universe would they not do that? How they just sold you. They're selling you a little rubber thing that holds 3 of these so that you don't knock your shade pots over, as opposed to fixing the design of the thing, right?
Yep.
Why in the world would you think they wouldn't want to sell you that stuff too and have you use the models and increase the potential size of their player base so you also then come buy the new figs they're making,
Right.
right? Like,
Yep.
yes, of course they'd love crossover. For the same way that by the by, there's a lot of things. There's a major amount, not completely, but a major amount of crossover between models in Horus Heresy and 40K, right? Now there
Right.
are some exceptions, like obviously the Primarchs and stuff. You can't play them in 40K, but like there's a lot of crossover. You can just
Right.
have different mark armors, right?
Right.
So like 100%. They would, that's like, will that game be on squares? Will they sell those models on? I have no idea. I really couldn't guess.
I mean,
If I was them, I would be doing some hardcore financial calculations about how much would we piss people off by putting these. Do we lose more in sales for people that absolutely only want square bases than we gain by being able to just not print all square bases, right? Just being able to can that entire line of printing, right? And
well,
make one type of base.
I mean, I think the joke originally was like all things, come around, right? Even square bases
Sure.
like become around, and so I think the point is that like, I think
But is that
my
just
money
a
is this.
clever marketing term, or is that
No,
real?
my money is this. What you will have is you will have round bases on everything. And then units, when things are parts of units, will be on trays that are squares.
Okay. So an individual model still has a round base?
And so individual models have round bases. So like skirmishers and individual units, heroes, monsters.
Oh,
And
I
then
forgot
if
to
they
do
are
our official introduction to this segment, which is ring-a-ding-ding, will predict a thing. Okay, so go ahead. Now
sure.
continue.
Yep. And so then like individual actors, you know, like what traditionally was like skirmish and stuff like that, are all on rounds, right?
Yeah, this is, and as somebody pointed out, yes, it's a Song of Ice and Fire style, as well as like several other games, but yes.
And so they do both. Like
Mhm.
they taco girl it.
Sure.
Where like they integrate it into the current world, they allow you to move between systems, and they also force people onto squares.
Mhm.
Like, and by squares I mean large square bases, i.e., movement trays.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, that's my call.
Okay, fair enough. All right. What other wild predictions do you have, Tom?
That we are going to get two very clear new lines, or the two very early like launches or reimagines are going to be Tomb Kings and Bretonians, and they will be new sculpts put out by Forge World.
Okay. Awesome. There you go.
So
That's
they
predicting a thing.
they will be Sisters of Silence. Like that's launching into the new world, because they're not gambling with those things.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
They know there's a market, and what better to relaunch the old world than finally giving people Bretonians?
Yeah, I'd love to see what they can do with designing those knights now. Like, they would be
Right.
so much better. And, like, I know people have a lot of nostalgic love for those Bretonian knights. Look,
Right.
I own a whole army. I wanted to take a picture of my new cabinet where I just set up new cabinets out in my office.
Yep.
Or out of my office in my other room. And I moved all of my dead armies in there.
Yep.
So, like, all the Tomb Kings went on there, and the Bretonians have this whole beautiful shelf. And, like, I mean, I have bigger armies of these armies than most people, many people.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
if any, like, there's got to be somebody in the world who has a bigger Tomb Kings army than me, but there's not many. I love that stuff. Okay.
Right.
Like, I'm not in any way opposed to this stuff, so please don't take me as bagging on these things. I love all the Bretonian knights I painted. I thought they were beautiful, but they're like not that good, and not enough people bought them to sustain it before. The sculpts have aged poorly. I like take off the rose-colored glasses for a moment and really look at those horses and see all of the like bad parts of the sculpt that just aren't quality anymore. Like it's just you wouldn't have a modern sculpt that looks like that. Right?
Right. And so I think that we're in a world where like that's what gets relaunched because of the pent up demand. Like,
well, and also it's a good test. Is there real pent up demand for those two armies? I'm interested to see, because they were two of the least popular armies in Warhammer Fantasy, right? Like,
right. Yep.
and so like either it's true that like there's an extremely vocal minority, possible.
Yep.
And so like yes, people will get them, or it truly is a sisters thing, where like there's a lot of people ready to line up and spend money. And by the way, it could be that A turns into B with an appropriate hype train, right? Like, I don't know how many people were actually legitimately interested in Plastic Sisters, but whatever they've done here, they managed to build up into people like losing their minds over this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there was a bit rocky on the road to that, but it's happened. So I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where like I'm not really sure on those. If I was gonna like, maybe they redo those, maybe they don't. I don't know if I agree with your prediction, but what I will say is they will definitely take a swing with some new armies, right? Because
like, and I think like Nippon is a really low hanging fruit there,
or a new Dogs of War, because then that's got a little bit of concept, but it hasn't been around since 5th edition, and like the concept of a mercenary force could be anything without violating any lore. right? Because
Right.
we certainly didn't see all the Dogs of War in the Dogs of War, right?
Sure. Sure.
Like,
Right.
yeah. So, whatever.
Yep.
So like they can do lots of interesting things to sort of drive the demand, to bring people along on the production, test how much of a market there really is. Like there's interesting ways to see that they've now figured out that they can like market this. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And that where they could build interest and certainly explore new space. Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't like. Will this be in plastic or resin? Like,
Who
will it
knows?
be forge rolled or the Horus Heresy style or largely resin? I got no idea. I wouldn't
Right.
even take a swing at that guess. Like,
Right. Yeah. I'm not guessing that.
no, I wouldn't even lay a prediction on that. It's just impossible to say, right? I do agree with Spongy Paint, who said, "Excellent, another place to play all my Chaos Demons. Chaos Demons continuing to win always. They're useful in every game. You can use them everywhere. Being a Chaos Demon player is always a great day. You get to play in all the games. All right. So, what else have we got, man? What else have we got here on predictions or thoughts?
I am.
I know where I want to end this, but I want
That's
to
fine.
get through all this first.
I mean, I am super excited by the possibility. Like, put it this way, I don't care about their zombie game.
Their zombie game?
Yeah, I just don't. Like, I don't care about the old world.
Oh, you're saying like the old world has no interest to you personally, is what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
Like
it.
it's, but here's the deal: if they drop Tomb Kings, I'm buying models. Right? Like,
Yeah, sure.
I love that army. And what I'll do is I'll convert it over, and like they will immediately pull, like they'll immediately pull me in as a customer, and I'll like be able to realize some projects that I haven't gotten to realize because of the new sculpts. And so what I would say is yeah, like I think that there's a lot of gas in some of those concepts. Like a Nippon Ninja Force, like yeah, there's gas there. So
Sure. All right, cool. I'll move to my emotional summation too, which is this. Like we have started on emotion, end on
yeah,
emotion, because I think we've
yep,
cracked through most of the major discussion points of what we have over this very short article.
sure,
So one, I say I'll repeat some key elements of this. We have no idea what this is going to be. We can make assumptions. There's no single reason this was done, but a lot of reasons. You don't make a major move like this without actually having lots of good reasons to do it and knowing you're tackling your downside risk
and counting the cost.
and counting the cost. I'm not worried about the community. The AOS community has come up and been incredibly strong. It's great. It's resilient. It's no reason it goes anywhere just because another game gets introduced. Like, yes, there can be sniping back and forth between 40k and Horus Heresy people. Yes, there will be sniping back and forth between like the old world people and AOS people, and there'll be memes that hurt your heart. They make your heart hurt so much when you look at the mean meme on the internet. And my advice is to not look at the mean memes on the internet and to scan by and like continue engaging in all the positive, wonderful parts of the community and going to events and continuing to celebrate your hobby with a positive passion, which is what we've always been about and what I think has so many in this community are now about. And I hope that players who come back are about the same thing with their own game, with the old world, whatever that is. There's no, it
Yeah.
doesn't nothing about that has to be negative.
Right.
I agree with you that I have zero interest in this. My my personal interest right now is at zero. Like literally the needle didn't move, right? And that's
Right.
because like on a personal level, and this is my own opinion, it does not a judgment on yours. Okay? So let's be super clear here. We can like different things. You can like what you like, and that's all right. I have no interest in the old world. I kept up this picture of the apocalypse of the old world the whole time because it was the best thing that ever happened to my Warhammer career. I didn't like the old world. I found it to be, personal opinion, derivative, boring fantasy. Okay? But in the same way, I find most fantasy like that. Most of the Forgotten Realms in D&D, I would give the exact same opinion on. Okay?
Right.
Like, there's no difference there. But if it's what you love and you dig it and you find it interesting, that's fantastic. And I'm excited that those that you who love that are going to now have, something that you potentially love as much as I've come to love AOS and the crazy mythic fantasy world that is AOS, right? Having more stuff like that that people can love and play and engage in and take advantage of only makes it stronger, right? So that's not a downside. I like the best case for me in this is likely that I have some new avenues to get some interesting models or bits or something like that, right?
Right. New conversions.
Yeah, sure. Like, that's the most upside to me, right?
Right.
Which is cool. That's still a good upside. Like, great, make more minis. Like, cool, that's just more chances for me to find stuff I like for either proxies or whatever. And the it doesn't matter that I don't like the lore. It doesn't matter that you don't like the lore of one or the other. Your like or dislike of one is neither correct nor incorrect. That's not a thing, right? It's just, you love a thing. Celebrate that you love a thing and let other people love their things. And that's a good thing. So there you go.
I'm excited.
Sure.
Like, I care nothing about this game, and I'm excited.
I'll watch what happens 4 years from now. Like I said,
yeah.
I have no idea what my life or the world or AOS or basically anything in the universe looks like in 2023 when this game launches.
Sure.
So that's probably a thing to temper your expectations about. But here we are. Like, that's what it's going to be. So cool.
Yeah.
My personal feeling is, get involved to GW, publish that guiding principles, article, set us all on the track, put some kind of, open the box a little so we have some kind of conception of what this is going to be, so people don't build up the hype train to 1 million only to be disappointed. Talk about what you want to accomplish with this project. That is the best thing you can do. Be open
Cast
and
vision.
Yes.
Cast vision for the project.
100%. Give us your vision. You decided to do this massive project. Okay?
Right.
This is a massive, massive thing. They did. This had to go through countless layers of approval within that company. Okay?
Right, especially for it to go public.
Right. Like, can you imagine the approval chains that happened, the discussions, the meetings leading up to this, right? Okay. So you've got all that information. Share with us your vision. What sold you, GW, on wanting to do this? Why do you think this is such a good idea, right? What makes you excited for this? Share that vision and bring us along with it. That's the best thing you can do. All right?
Yep.
Because that will manage expectations. That will set the appropriate level of sort of hype, and it will engage people in the best possible way.
Yep.
Right?
It's true.
So, like, that's got to be my closing thought, is that's what I want to see. Your marketers are funny. The meme article's funny. Ha ha ha. Great. Good work. Marketing team. Very clever. None of that's real stuff. Okay? Make the real stuff. Right? So there you go. Since it just got asked, we'll close on the same thing they closed on. I mentioned it a little bit at the top. We'll mention it a little bit now. Which
in
is
the meantime,
they closed the article on saying something giant, like real giant, is coming, but right now we're heesh. I argue that's the same thing, and I called it on Wednesday at the close of the show when I said I want an all-giant army and make it from Heish. I had apparently tapped into the weave of reality because I argue that's what we're getting. Look, it's going to be about, like, March-ish will be time for a new army, right? When they'll want to do a whole new army. So they'll give us a...
April's when you'll see the new army for AOS.
Sure, March, April. We'll get, like... And because they're in Heish, and Heish is, like, the world of logic and intelligence and that kind of thing, and like, you know,
You'll get smart
math,
giants.
you'll get smart giants. The giants
Yep.
there got smart enough to not be drunken, stupid messes because that's the nature of the realm. Just like
Because it's enlightenment. Enlightenment
yes,
is the push of Heish. And
correct.
so what you'll do is you'll get like an army of like hyper magical, super smart giants.
Yep. 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 Exactly.
Like sages.
Because
Sages.
the realms
Yeah.
that people are in change their personality, right? Like Akshi makes you
Right.
more bold and brave and fiery and easy to anger and so on and so forth, right? And Haish makes you more logical and cold and smart and mathematical. Like there are up and downsides to all the
Right.
realms, right?
Right.
And like a dumb giant that because like giants in all the other realms just get their worst traits explored, but this is the only one that rewrote their brains. Oh my god, if that was the army that came out, like my head would explode. It would be the greatest thing. I would have pallets of that army shipped to my house.
It's true.
So I just hope that that's correct. Like, or they were just being like wordy with saying giant, and really it'll just be stupid high shelves, and I'll be sad unless
Right.
they're all sweet angels and
Angels of light bringing enlightenment to the realms.
right.
I mean,
Look,
come on.
if they're angels, I've talked before. Like, if I minimized my desktop
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah. But what happens if it's giant angel elves?
oh, see, now you had my interest. Now you have my attention. Like, yes, if it were giant angelic elves, best of all worlds. Oh my god, it's
Like-
amazing.
Like solar, like solars
yeah, like
in
solars. Yeah, they're
yeah.
all large and huge and stuff. Yes.
Yes.
Oh
Like-
god.
What if Teclis is like, maybe if I just go bigger,
Yeah, like
have more sculpting room?
I don't know his name, but like, or like, we'll just use the brain meme. Like, that is, somebody needs to make me the brain meme of like the galaxy brain, and it's just like, you know, and the top is giant angel elves. That's the galaxy brain. Yes. So,
Oh, it'd be delightful.
yeah, there you go. And yes, welcome, Joe Bookish. I'm glad you found the channel tonight. That's awesome. We do lots of content on Warhammer and Age of Sigmar and Hobby, and we're glad to have you along. At any rate, yeah, I think that's probably everything. I am beyond excited for that announcement. I read that whole article and I was like at a 0 level of interest, and then they mentioned the Giants and Heish thing, and I was like, whoa, shot to 1,000,000, like instantly. Because if we just got the logic giants, the smart giants, the different types of giants, like formed by Heish, oh my god, that would be so incredible, and it would be an Imperial Knights equivalent, like somebody that's. I agree, IT. Like yes, oh my god, yes, like bring in the Lords of War, like. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I already have a giant army. I'll do another one. I'll do another big one. Like we are in my wheelhouse now. So at any rate, here's what I'll say. Final closing thought. My closing thought to my long closing thought.
Sure.
Tom, tell me if you agree with this. This year has been an amazing time for Age of Sigmar. We've gotten more books in this year than some editions got in their entire release cycle of Warhammer Fantasy, okay? And there we go. And the data dropped. And it dropped. I love it, of course. Of course it would. We're back.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks.
All right. Good lord. So at any rate,
cast your vision.
Year. More than we've gotten in some editions of Warhammer Fantasy in the past. In 22 years now of playing this game, this is the best year I've ever had. It's the most exciting to me. The game is moving towards a really good place. I feel like we've got a strong set of competition, lots of compelling armies. Everybody's getting to play with their toys. This is just another interesting announcement that leads on to the fact that I believe that the game is in good hands, the company's being steered in a good direction, and ultimately we're going to get a bunch of amazing things in the years to come in between now and whenever this happens.
Yeah.
They've been going from strength to strength, and I think that's just going to continue.
Oh.
Fair?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, when I think about this year, like, I can't wait to do our year-end show here in a month or so. Because, like, there's simply never been a year like this. Like, when I look at my bookshelf, like the army codexes from this year is just,
it's mind-blowing. And I've gotten
yeah.
everything I wanted and more. I never knew I needed those new Chaos Knights and Chaos Warriors, but like the second I saw them, my order was already, there, right? I mean, like, this is a great time. So I say
Yeah.
continue to stay positive, stay excited, ignore the dumb, don't let the internet be your life, right? Stay positive, celebrate the hobby, and there you go. We'll be back as on Wednesday as normal. And speaking of new armies, this Wednesday we'll be talking Bone Daddies. So join us then.
OCR Bone Reapers, folks, come join us. It'll be fun.
There it dropped for real. There you go. Oh, and we're back. We'll be back on Wednesday talking Bone Daddies. All right. Bye, everybody.